From high society wild child to the most beloved woman in England, Lady Diana Manners was the epitome of decadence and a symbol of elegance. But there were secrets about her life that even she didn't know, until one night a friend made a casual comment about Diana's family, and it unraveled their web of lies. Lady Diana's life began like many a rebel before her, born into the cold and suffocating embrace of aristocracy. Her life meticulously controlled by her mother Violet, the Duchess of Rutland. Despite her artistic and bohemian exterior, Violet ruled their home with an iron fist, enforcing strict and archaic house rules, keeping Diana under lock and key. Even social gatherings were deemed impermissible. Her mother's greatest fear? That Diana would succumb to temptation and lose her purity before she could make a suitable match in society. But little did the Duchess know, her attempts to preserve Diana's purity would only fuel the fire of rebellion within her daughter. By the time Diana was old enough to step into the high society spotlight, she was bursting at the seams for independence. For Diana, her debut into society was supposed to be a moment of triumph, a chance to embrace the lavish lifestyle that she had so longed for. But as she waltzed into the glittering world of debutante balls and aristocratic gatherings, she was quickly confronted with a devastating realization. Instead of finding kindred spirits longing for adventure, Diana merely found herself surrounded by other sheltered young women, each bound by the same stifling expectations and traditions, with most of them lacking her verve, bravery, and charm. And the men? They were hardly better, and she was supposed to marry one of them? Diana's future flashed before her eyes. Luckily, she found an unexpected ally in the form of Raymond Asquith, a man whose charm and wit matched her own. Raymond was the son of British Prime Minister Herbert Henry Asquith, and over a decade older than Diana. Despite their age difference, Diana grew up idolizing and crushing on Raymond, who ran with a very fast crowd. Longing to be a part of this crowd, Diana was quick to jump in on the fun as soon as the opportunity presented itself. Together, Diana and Raymond formed the Coterie, a group of affluent young socialites who reveled in scandalous antics and daring escapades. Indeed, this group would be the driving force sending Diana into the spotlight of London's gossip columns. Known for their devil-may-care attitude, the Coterie, or the corrupt Coterie, as they sometimes called themselves, spared no expense in the pursuit of pleasure. One of their haunts was the very first nightclub in London, the Cave of the Golden Calf. At this point, London had become somewhat of a playground for the Coterie's audacious exploits, ranging from childish to terrifying. Their motto? Unafraid of words, unshocked by drink, and unashamed of decadence and gambling. Essentially, a much more quaint version of the phrase, "you only live once," or YOLO, as the kids say these days. With those words to live by, they went on treasure hunts, hosted lavish parties, and caused a great deal of monetary damage along the way, which they would then aristocratically insist on paying for. To Diana and her new friends, they were merely living life to the fullest. To others, they were shallow, unthinking, and cruel. Diana was going off the rails, having gone so quickly from repressed childhood to full-blown adulthood. Raymond became much more of a moderating influence on the group as time passed, while Diana would become the ringleader of the debauchery. The Coterie's dalliance with recreational substances was no secret, but Diana took it to a whole other level, particularly indulging in chloroform. One night at a dinner, Diana even proclaimed, "I must be unconscious tonight," and went off in search of jolly old chlorers. Then again, there was a grave reality that she was trying to escape. As the whirlwind of scandal and indulgence swept through her life, Diana found herself ensnared in a web of forbidden love with Raymond Asquith. Diana's affection for Raymond only deepened with time, and he too shared feelings for her. However, Raymond already had a wife, Catherine, and the trio were all friends. Not wanting to disrupt the delicate balance of her social circle, Diana stayed far away from Raymond, at least for now. In the meantime, men were lining up for Diana's affection. Diana's time with the Coterie was truly significant, It was her coming of age and beauty. As alluring as her scandalous lifestyle was, so too was her appearance. Her blind blue stare made her goddess-like and electrifying. It came as no surprise when she attracted the attention of the wealthy American finance man, George Gordon Moore. Moore became so enamored with Diana that he swore to divorce his wife and started showering Diana with gifts. Also vying for Diana's love, Duff Cooper, a fellow Coterie friend who was relentless with his marriage proposals. Diana rejected him though, stating that she was very decadent and theatrical and inclined to look fast, qualities no man likes in his wife. Though she said all this in jest, amidst all the male attention, it was difficult for some to believe otherwise. Accordingly, Diana's reputation was colored by the whispers of naysayers claiming that she was merely a scalp hunter, out to corrupt the young men around her. But this gossip paled in comparison to what came next. First, their friend Gustav Hamel perished in a daredevil plane maneuver. Then another member, Dennis Anson, drowned during one of their cheeky midnight swims. The press wasted no time painting Diana as the femme fatale of the coterie, placing the blame entirely on her shoulders, and even attributing the tragic deaths of both men to attempts at showing off romantically for their queen D. The result? Diana was exiled from high society faster than you can say persona non grata, with her name removed from guest lists and people refusing to let her into their homes. Only they didn't know the truth. She was not actually out betting every man she saw, and although her strict upbringing drove her to rebel, the fear about needing to keep her purity somehow stuck. So though she had many suitors, she kept them all at arm's length. While the gossip mill wreaked havoc on Diana's social status, the chatter was soon drowned out by something much more destructive. The same year that Diana found herself as the black sheep of high society, World War I erupted and her real nightmares began. The world changed overnight, and Diana watched in horror as many of her male friends went to fight. Then, the worst of her terrors came true when her secret love, Raymond Asquith, was called to the front too. Unable to bear the thought of losing him, Diana met with Raymond in secret at his training camp for a final farewell. Later, Raymond would write to her saying, "Even in this foul and dingy inn, the recollected glory of your beauty flings its unquenchable beam." Tragically, this would only make the news to come that much more devastating. In 1916, Diana received the earth-shattering news that Raymond Asquith had been killed in battle. But the story of his death is now legendary. In true British stiff upper lip fashion, Asquith, having been shot in the chest, lit a cigarette to conceal the calamity of his wound, allowing his men's attack on the enemy to continue without distraction. By the time troops carried him back to safety, it was too late. Hit with the reality that Raymond would never be returning home, Diana revved up her destructive partying ways. Her wealthy admirer, George Gordon Moore, did much to encourage this behavior, throwing parties specifically for Diana and filling them with all manner of drink and racy art. Moore was still in full pursuit of Diana's hand in marriage, which her mother Violet was more than happy about, but it had nothing to do with her daughter's happiness. Moore's financial connections gave him influence in the war efforts, and Violet intended to take full advantage of this to save her son from conscription. Violet beseeched her daughter to seduce Moore for all he was worth. Diana despised fanning the flames of Moore's lust, referring to her suitor as George Gordon Ghastly, with his, quote, straight black hair, flattened face, and atomic energy. Nonetheless, Violet's efforts reached a new low when she let Moore sneak into Diana's room at 3 a.m. to allow him the opportunity to seduce her. She wasn't compromised, though, and later wrote that Moore's attempted seduction was sullying, mutilating, and scarring. Not to mention, her trust in her mother was now completely gone, and this would have lasting effects. While Diana's brother managed to escape the front, she herself was unable to escape the endless parade of men throwing themselves at her feet. There was one admirer who did manage to break past Diana's defenses, fellow Coterie member Duff Cooper. Around the time that Diana was coming to terms with the loss of her dear Raymond Asquith, her friendship with Duff Cooper deepened. With his womanizer antics, Cooper found his way into Diana's heart, and his influence on her was a bit peculiar. Where Diana could barely work up emotions for most of the men in her life, her reaction to Duff Cooper was through the roof. With him, she knew passion. But every rose has its thorn, and this fiery relationship had its share of heated arguments. In one instance, Diana hit Cooper so hard that his lip bled. One of their mainstay arguments centered around Diana's residual feelings for the late Raymond Asquith. She only added fuel to the fire when she promised Cooper that she loved him best, but only among the living. And Cooper did once famously write to Diana, "I hope everyone you like better than me will die very soon." So, tit for tat, I guess. All the while, Diana's mother Violet greatly disapproved of her daughter's relationship, referring to Duff Cooper as that awful Duff, whose womanizing, gambling, and drinking ways were legendary at this point. As such, Violet continued to try and find her daughter a more advantageous match in society, even attempting to set Diana up with the Prince of Wales, a man who would go on to become King Edward VIII. In the end, Duff Cooper's connection to the Coterie and Diana's old, long-lost friends was just too strong. The two tied the knot in 1919. For the new Lady Diana Cooper, the wedding night was a momentous occasion. She would later describe feeling elated and desirous, in contrast to her new husband Duff, who recounted their consummation of marriage as very old-fashioned and conventional. And it was all downhill from there. Duff started to show his true colors, namely just days after the wedding. He admitted to falling into lust with another woman. And then mistress quickly became mistresses, as Duff would go on a seemingly infinite tirade of infidelity, which included the likes of high-profile socialites such as Gloria Guinness, one of Truman Capote's swans. At one point, Duff even fathered an illegitimate child with an American diplomat's wife. Diana's reaction to all of this? It was unconventional, to say the least. For the most part, Diana was seemingly unperturbed by her husband's roving eye, at least in a white-knuckled sort of way, and allowed the affairs to go on right under her nose. She even frequently befriended the other women. In reality, Diana did reach a breaking point when Duff took up with one notoriously catty heiress, Daisy Fellows. Diana had tolerated a lot, but she wasn't about to tolerate Daisy Fellows, a woman with a reputation for being so mean-spirited that she reportedly filled even the likes of Duff Cooper with self-disgust. Diana made a rare snipe at Daisy, calling her the very picture of fashionable depravity. And then she took it further than just jibes. When Duff all but abandoned Diana in the middle of a date night to spend time in Daisy Fellow's bed, Diana rang up the authorities with a facade of panic as she reported her husband missing. She couldn't let Duff have all the fun. Later in life, Diana would claim indifference about her marriage situation, saying of the mistresses, "They were the flowers, but I was the tree." But maybe this nonchalance was all an act, and that would make a lot of sense for what came next. Diana was soon seen by Hollywood as the most beloved woman in England, outside of her marriage, and film director D.W. Griffith wanted her to star in his upcoming film, Hearts of the World, so he approached her with a tantalizing offer. American cinema had actually been sniffing around Diana for a while, but her parents and social circles deterred her from partaking in what they considered employment for loose women. In fact, Mary, the Queen Consort of England, actually declared that she would banish Diana from court if she saw her on the screen. But for once in her life, Diana put her foot down and took the part. She went on to become a true celebrity, acting in a string of successful productions, and even came close to replacing Greta Garbo in a film, until Garbo reconciled with the director. As it happened, Diana was so effervescent on screen that even her strict mother was a convert. In typical Diana fashion, she was nonchalant about her accomplishments and once quipped that she acted only for the money and distantly imagined fun. Don't let my grimaces to order be called self-expression. Well, if money was her MO, then she hit the jackpot. Thanks to her role in the smash hit revival, The Miracle, by the 1920s, Diana was wealthy beyond her wildest dreams, and famous to boot. But there were other perks of the job. Diana's fame and fortune gave her enormous leverage in her once imbalanced marriage. She lent her celebrity and financial power to Duff Cooper's rising political career. But with great power comes great responsibility. The responsibility to make your dirtball husband pay for his wrongdoings. And that's exactly what Diana did. When Duff got a little out of line, Diana would pull on her purse strings. Once, after taking up with his latest mistress, Lady Warrender, overseas, Duff had the nerve to ask his wife for money. Diana sent back a 200-pound note with a letter saying, "I hope it will be enough, though I expect you to drop it on plover's eggs and Lady Warrender." Lady Diana continued to shine and sparkle on the big screen and in ballrooms across England, but all while hiding a dark secret. Ever since a serious fall that Diana had suffered in 1919, she had become increasingly dependent on morphine. While she'd had an easy time with jolly old chlorers, this was a much more difficult habit to break, and her struggle was a cause of concern, even to her fun-loving husband. Yet it would actually be something else entirely that would place Diana's life in danger and give new meaning to the phrase, expect the unexpected. After over a decade of marriage, Diana had come to the conclusion that she was barren. But no, Diana was pregnant, an expectant mother at 37 years old. At first, Diana was elated, and then her excitement transformed into terror. Diana's pregnancy proved to be a testing time in more ways than one. Firstly, there was the outsider gossip that she had turned the tables on Duff Cooper, and the child belonged to another man. Then, there was Diana's internal struggles with the fear that her body would turn grotesque, plus the added concern that childbirth would put her in mortal danger. Needless to say, it was all a lot to take in, and Diana was certain that she was nearing the end of her life. In fact, Diana felt so certain of this that she spent her days in the nursing home leading up to her labor, telegramming goodbye letters to her friends. On September 15th, 1929, Diana gave birth to a baby boy. When Diana emerged from the hospital, a crowd was waiting for her as if she had just birthed the Prince of Wales. She had survived childbirth, but not without the complications she had feared. Her son had to be born via cesarean section, or C-section, prompting the ever-witty Diana to name her son John Julius Caesar. By the 1940s, Duff Cooper's political career had taken off, alongside the coming of World War II. Diana's addiction issues were at bay, and they fully embraced their power couple status, playing host and hostess to some of the world's most influential people. Diana took to it like a duck to water, setting up some of the most lavish parties, perhaps channeling from her days with the Coterie and bringing forth her cruel side along with it. She began to develop some sharp opinions about the respectable guests that they hosted. For one, she called famous macho writer Ernest Hemingway the greatest bore to end all bores. She even turned her nose up at the former King Edward VIII, you know, the one her mother tried to set her up with. Edward had since abdicated his throne for his mistress, Wallis Simpson, and Diana sniffed that Edward was sillier and duller. But Diana wasn't without her own public flaws. She was a shockingly bad driver, once ramming into a milk cart on the side of the road, only to be found laughing hysterically when dogs started lapping up the mess. Her driving shenanigans only got more ridiculous when parking laws came into effect. Diana simply ignored them, parking wherever she wanted, and leaving silly notes on her windshield for the officers. One read, "Dear Warden, taken sad child to a cinema, please forgive." Another, "Dearest Warden, front tooth broken off, look like 81-year-old pirate, so at dentist." Regardless, Diana still managed to retain her elegance over the years, and accordingly, her natural ability to receive invites to the best parties on any continent. One of those parties being the party of the century, a costume ball called the Bal Oriental, hosted by Carlos de Bastaghi in Venice. Diana attended as Cleopatra, and liked the photograph Cecil Beaton took of her so much that she used it on her passport. In 1952, Just when it looked like Diana and Duff Cooper couldn't fly any closer to the sun of high society, the government made Duff the Viscount Norwich for his services to Britain throughout World War II and beyond. Diana greatly detested the title of Vicountess Norwich and refused to go by the honor, saying that it sounded like porridge. She wouldn't have to go by the title for long. Over the next year, Diana's life would turn upside down, with Duff suffering a massive stomach hemorrhage in May of 1953. Duff managed to survive this instance, and Diana, in an effort to help him convalesce, decided to take him on a holiday cruise. But all this did was seal his fate. On New Year's Eve, while on their cruise, Duff suffered another hemorrhage. He lay in agony for hours while the doctors on the ship tried to stop the bleeding. Diana couldn't work up the courage to stay with Duff in his final hours, refusing to watch her husband in pain. In the end, Duff would pass away on January 1st of 1954 at the age of 63. Such was Diana's grief that she chose not to attend the funeral, feeling that it would only serve as an opportunity for the public to gawk at her. After Duff's passing, Diana took out space in the paper to announce that she was reverting back to Lady Diana Cooper, so that she could drop the Vicountess Norwich business and still honor her husband, as she went on living many years without him, passing in 1986 at the age of 93. Diana's life captivated many, but there was one secret that still fascinates society to this day. Diana always had a fraught, complicated relationship with her mother Violet. For one, she always tried to keep her daughter in eternal ignorance and never accepted her husband Duff. But it all makes sense when you know the family's biggest secret. According to pretty much anyone you ask, Diana was not actually the daughter of the Duke of Rutland. She was a product of an affair that Violet had with her lover, Harry Cust. The resemblance between Diana and her biological father speaks for itself, but the way Diana found out is worthy of a soap opera. The scandal was something of an open secret in high society. The rumor was so commonplace that Diana actually first heard about it as a teenager when a friend casually brought it up at a party. To most people, a devastating revelation. To Diana, just another party. As she put it, it didn't seem to matter. I was devoted to my father, and I liked Harry Cust too. A classic Diana response. Unbothered and unforgettable. Just like her scandalous story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for even more astonishing facts about the world's most iconic figures.